What is I-CBT therapy? Dear viewer, imagine your mind as a bustling city. Thoughts speed by like cars, emotions shine bright like neon signs, and memories linger like street performers. But when obsessive or irrational thinking takes over, it's like a traffic jam with chaos, honking, and frustration.
That's where inference-based cognitive behavioral therapy, I-CBT, comes in.
It's the cognitive traffic cop that clears the mental gridlock and restores mental flow. I-CBT is relatively new, but don't let its youth fool you as it's science-based and effective. Born from traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, I-CBT takes a slightly different approach to tackling the perpetually pesky problem of obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, and other anxiety-related conditions. While CBT focuses on challenging the content of intrusive thoughts, I-CBT takes it a step further. It questions the very foundation of those thoughts. It's like mistaking a shadow on the wall for a lurking beast, only to find it's just a harmless tree branch swaying in the light. Once you shine a light on it, the illusion vanishes, and the fear melts away. Birth of I-CBT, a tale of two therapies. To understand I-CBT, we need to rewind a bit. Traditional CBT is like a trusty all-in-one tool for mental health. It helps people identify and challenge distorted thoughts, replacing them with more realistic ones. For example, if you're convinced your boss hates you because they didn't say hello this morning, CBT would encourage you to consider alternative explanations.
Maybe they were distracted, or perhaps they're just not a morning person.
It's a solid approach, but for some people, especially those with OCD, it doesn't always hit the mark. Why is this? Because OCD is tricky. It doesn't just create irrational thoughts. It convinces you that those thoughts are real and urgent. Telling someone with OCD, "Don't worry, your hands aren't really dirty," is like telling a cat not to chase a laser pointer. The thought is just too compelling to ignore. Enter Inference-Based Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, developed by psychologist Dr. Kieron O'Connor in the late 1990s. I-CBT takes a different approach. Instead of arguing with the content of obsessive thoughts, it questions the process that leads to them. It's like realizing the magician's trick isn't magic at all. It's just sleight of hand. Once you see how the trick works, the illusion loses its power. How I-CBT work? At its core, I-CBT is about helping people recognize that their obsessive thoughts are based on faulty inferences, which are mental shortcuts that lead to irrational conclusions.
Let's break it down with an example.
Meet Sarah, who has OCD. She's convinced that if she doesn't wash her hands exactly 7 times after touching a doorknob, she'll contract a deadly disease. Traditional CBT might encourage her to challenge the belief that 7 hand washes are necessary. But I-CBT goes deeper. It helps Sarah see that her fear is based on an inference which is a mental leap from "I touched a doorknob" to "I'm going to die." By examining the logic behind this inference, Sarah can start to dismantle it. Here's how it works in practice. Identify the obsessive thought. Sarah's thought is, "If I don't wash my hands 7 times, I'll get sick and die." Trace the inference. I-CBT helps Sarah trace the chain of reasoning that led to this thought. Did she see any evidence that the doorknob was contaminated? No. Did she have any reason to believe that 7 washes are the magic number? Not really. The inference is based on fear, not facts. Challenge the inference. Sarah is encouraged to ask herself, is this thought based on reality, or is it just my brain playing tricks on me? Over time, she learns to recognize that her obsessive thoughts are like mirages. They seem real, but they're not. Replace with reality-based thinking. Instead of acting on the obsessive thought, Sarah practices responding with a more realistic one, like, "I touched a doorknob, but there's no evidence it's contaminated. I'll wash my hands once and move on." Why I-CBT works, the science behind the magic. You might be wondering, does this actually work? Fear not, dear viewer, for science has spoken.
Research has shown that I-CBT can be highly effective for people with OCD, particularly those who haven't responded well to other treatments.
A 2015 study published in the Journal of Behavior Therapy and Experimental Psychiatry found that I-CBT led to significant reductions in OCD symptoms, with many participants maintaining their gains over time. So, what's the secret sauce? One key factor is that I-CBT targets the process of obsessive thinking, not just the content. By helping people recognize that their thoughts are based on faulty inferences, It disrupts the cycle of obsession and compulsion. It's like interrupting the power to a malfunctioning machine. Once the gears stop turning, the whole system comes to a halt. Another strength of I-CBT is its focus on doubt. People with OCD often describe feeling a sense of not just rightness, which is a nagging doubt that something is wrong, even when there's no evidence to support it. I-CBT helps people sit with this doubt without acting on it, teaching them that uncertainty is a normal part of life. I-CBT Toolbox, practical strategies for everyday life. So how can you apply the principles of I-CBT in your own life? Whether you're dealing with OCD, anxiety, or just the occasional irrational thought, here are some tools to add to your mental health toolkit. Spot the inference. When you notice an obsessive or anxious thought, ask yourself, what's the chain of reasoning behind this? Is it based on facts, or is it just my brain jumping to conclusions? Play detective. Gather evidence for and against the thought. If you're convinced that forgetting to lock the door will lead to a home invasion, ask yourself, how likely is that really? Has it ever happened before? Embrace uncertainty. Practice tolerating doubt without acting on it. Remind yourself that it's okay not to have all the answers. Retrain your brain. Replace obsessive thoughts with reality-based ones. Instead of thinking, I must check the stove again, try, I've already checked it and it's fine. Laugh at the absurdity. Sometimes the best way to defang an irrational thought is to laugh at it. Imagine your obsessive thought as a cartoon character with a silly voice. It's hard to take it seriously when it sounds like Donald Duck. Typical I-CBT session. Here's a glimpse into what a typical session might involve. Understanding obsessional doubts. The therapist helps you identify and understand the sequence of obsessional doubts and inferential confusion. This involves recognizing how imagination and distorted narratives contribute to OCD symptoms. Exploring reasoning patterns. The therapist works with you to pinpoint common reasoning categories behind your obsessional doubts. This step is crucial for addressing the cognitive distortions that fuel OCD. Reframing obsessional narratives. The therapist guides you in reconstructing your obsessional narrative to reduce reliance on imagination and enhance trust in sensory experiences. Skills development. You will learn techniques to challenge and resolve obsessional doubts, fostering a more rational and grounded perspective. Consolidation and homework. The therapist summarizes the key points and insights from the session. You may be given homework or tasks to practice and reinforce new skills and perspectives. The takeaway: a new way to think about thinking. Inference-based cognitive behavioral therapy is more than just a fancy acronym. It's a powerful tool for retraining the way we think. By targeting the faulty inferences that fuel obsessive thoughts, it helps people break free from the cycle of anxiety and compulsion. It's like giving your brain a software update, replacing glitchy thought patterns with smoother, more efficient ones. So, the next time you find yourself stuck in a mental traffic jam, just remember that you have some tools at your disposal. With a little help from I-CBT, you can transform your mind from chaotic traffic gridlock into a smooth flow. And who knows? You will probably even enjoy the ride.
Disclaimer: this video is for informational and educational purposes only and not intended to give psychotherapeutic advice.